All right, let's just give it a second to load. Megan, you can hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
I can, definitely. Let me just check if this is actually live. Okay, it looks like we just connected with LinkedIn right now. So welcome everybody. This is such a nice discussion for today. I am joining from Chicago. It's a nice, sunny and beautiful, beautiful day. So I'm really excited for this conversation because this is something that I see come up all the time in leadership and of course in personal life. And some of you know me. My name is Monica Kristaly, and I guide driven women in business to lead with calm clarity, grounded confidence, and emotional coherence. The idea is to turn pressure into presence and create meaningful results. This is exactly why this conversation matters. And we have seen a lot of women today showing up more. So they're speaking more, they're sharing more, they're building this visibility. And yet there's still this feeling that something is not fully landing. And this is where we come in with this conversation, right? Because being seen doesn't automatically means that you're being trusted. And that gap is what we are going to explore today. I'm joined by Meghan Walsh, who focuses on helping women leaders find their purpose and confidence so they can create more fulfilling careers. What I really appreciate about Meghan's work is how it supports women not just being visible, but it also feeling grounded and confident in how they show up. So, Meghan, I would love for you to take a minute to introduce yourself and share a little bit more about your work.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today and talk about such an important topic. So, as you mentioned, my name's Meghan Walsh. I'm an empowered leadership coach, workshop facilitator, and the author of the book, Rare Birds, Dare to Break from the Flock and Find Your Purpose. And I have a unique lens, I guess you could say, in the leadership in the corporate world. I was there for 18 years, built a marketing department from the ground up for a Fortune 500 company, did lots of leadership, and ended up learning about other modalities as well, such as shamanism, druidism, energy healing. And all of these things made me a more empowered leader. And this is information and this is different tools and techniques that I teach as well to kind of bridge this gap so more leaders can be more awakened, more aware of themselves, and really step into their power.
Mm-hmm. And that's great because I think we're at a point where that's exactly where we need to go with our work, especially with AI. Like we need to tap more into our own power as human beings rather than using, artificial intelligence. But that might be something for a different discussion. I feel like.
Yes.
So this brings me to the first topic or first area where we talk about the visibility hesitation. Why do we hold back? And what's important here is that hesitation usually it's not coming from a lack of capability. In fact, most of the times it actually shows up in people who are highly capable, highly aware, and stepping into something that's bigger. And there's often a gap between where you are and how you see yourself. And that gap can sometimes feel like doubt, like second guessing, and maybe like, I'm not ready yet. And it gets labeled as imposter syndrome. But oftentimes that also is just a transition phase. At the same time, there's also the external layer, how women are perceived when they do speak up. So I would love to hear your perspective on where do you see that hesitation coming from?
Yeah, I think you landed on a few points there. There is this self-doubt, especially that comes from, self-limiting beliefs that we have that are kind of like operating on a subconscious level. And then there's also different perspectives of how women are seen in the workplace. And, my clients have experienced it. I've experienced it as well, where men and women are seen in two different ways, where a man is considered assertive and he might be screaming and they're like, oh, he's he's assertive, he's not emotional. Anger is an emotion. Yet, women are usually labeled as more emotional. There was actually a report done by Texio that analyzed 23,000 different reviews. And what they found is that I think it was 78% more of women were labeled as emotional as compared to men was only 11%. And the thing is, a lot of the feedback that women get, disproportionately more so than men, I think it's over 60%, is not actionable, right? It's personality based. It's perceptions. It can perpetuate biases as well, and it can also perpetuate imposter syndrome. And funny enough, the women who get more of the negative feedback usually are the high performers as well. So when you have like a culmination of all these different things, women tend to be kind of like tiptoeing around, like, I don't know, am I going to be one way to like seen two ways, or am I not, be assertive enough, but then are they going to consider me be bitchy about it? So it's a lot of self-doubt that's ruminating, but it's also about other things that are being perpetuated also in the workplace that is fueling it as well. And that's why we need to start becoming more aware of what is that internal dialogue that's coming up that's keeping me small from speaking, my truth and the value I can bring.
Did I hear you correctly? Did you say 78% of the women are being labeled emotional?
Yeah, compared
That is
to
a lot. That's also crazy. I mean, so this reminds me, when you mentioned it, it reminded me of the fact that, a lot of the people would say stop being emotional or don't bring that into the work field. But, women by nature, we are nurturers, right? We have that capacity to bring so much emotion into our work. And that is precisely our qualities. That's one of the most valuable qualities that we can bring into the work field, right? That's that glue that keeps the teams together. So it brings back to the question where we are whole, we are whole package. So even let's say someone who's not so nice, or someone who's playing the devil's advocate all the time, that tough personality, that doesn't mean they're actually tougher. They still have that emotional baggage. They just choose, or as you said, they're just choosing to show the tough emotions, the angriness, the frustration, or the big voices. That doesn't mean that their contribution is more valuable than someone who's speaking, more quieter, or just being themselves, being a woman, at work, right?
Yeah. And also, and again, like, those are still emotions. They're still emotional, but it's not construed as that as well. Like, it only seems to be labeled in certain aspects. And when we start to lean into our emotions, for a long time, I tried to stifle and control, because I always got that too. It's like, oh, you're being too emotional. So then I try to control it, because that's what we learn to do. We try to control things.
That's
However,
the expectation, right?
when you do that, you think about it even energetically. Try to like hold a fist for as long as you can, right? At some point you have to let go because of the energy you're exerting. It's not sustainable, because you're trying to control something that's not meant to be controlled. And when I learned that spectrum, of that are emotion, like anything from strengths and weaknesses, they're on a spectrum, yet our mind puts them in buckets, because that's how our mind works, it perceives. But when you realize that, you're like, you know what, like, show me a leader that has zero emotion that you would listen to, or a CEO that you would follow, that you want to work for, that has zero passion. You want to get fired up, and you want someone who leads you, who believes in what they're talking about, right? And all these types of emotions, understanding when, say, these more like negative emotions that are coming up, when we start to become more aware, we can align with them, right? We can go deeper and say, what's coming up for me right now, instead of trying to control it and lose our voice. Because that's what ended up happening to me, is that I was trying to control it. I mean, I was like, I have to be stoic. I have to show no emotion to be like the best leader. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up being like a shell of a human being. That's not that's not real leadership. You have to bring all aspects, but you have to be aware of how you can like align to help lead people in your organization, to help bring people on board and show them the impact that you're making.
Exactly. And just a quick note here, we're not talking about pitching. We're just talking about being real human beings, right? We don't
Yeah.
want to be, kind of looked at it differently, like the whining person or whatever, but just being real. And that is just so important. And that brings me actually to the second point of our talk today, where we can see visibility as authority, because there's a lot of messaging out there that says, and it's encouraging women to be more visible. But what we see in reality, visibility alone doesn't actually create authority, right? You can be very visible and not be fully trusted, and you can be less visible and still carry a very strong authority. So something else is at play here, which is visibility gets attention, but authority actually builds trust, and that's done over time. And I think this is where a lot of people feel the disconnect, that they're doing a lot of right things externally, but they feel this internal pressure. So the internal feelings and the strategic external pieces are not fully aligned. So, Megan, from your perspective, what's usually missing between actually being seen and being trusted?
There's a couple of things there. One of the things that I have found to kind of create more of that connection between the two is when a leader truly kind of understands their unique value proposition that they bring. And I believe that every person has a unique value proposition because no one's lived the life that you've lived. No one has this culmination of, strengths, the challenges that you've overcome. All these things, they give you such richness. And a lot of the times we kind of discount, the things that we know, the strengths that we have. And not only that, like the patterns and the things that we can see that other people can't see. We just kind of assume like, oh yeah, everyone can do that. But that is so rich and important because it helps you to see hidden opportunities. It helps you to see a bigger impact, right? And when you start using that voice with conviction, that's when you start also taking the action that aligns with what you're saying. It starts to build that trust. So for example, one of my clients, she's in an industry that is incredibly homogenous. It's, promotional items, right? Like not a lot that's setting you apart other than the price. And she realized like her value proposition of what she brings is this connection to all these different, not even just the vendors, but she started to create more experiences because the things that brought into her purpose was about, helping charities, helping the environment, bringing awareness to BIPOC owners of these different amazing promotional items that you could have. So then she started creating these experiences. It was no longer, here's a pen that I'm going to sell you. It's like, here's this experience. Like, I want you to be able to see all these amazing entrepreneurs that are making these amazing things that are impacting the earth and all these different areas. And now she's become this thought leader within her organization. And she's actually slowly like disrupting an entire industry, right? One where tariffs was hit the hardest. So she was able to see these hidden opportunities and start using her voice with confidence and conviction. And, now she is not only visible, but she has all this authority where they're coming to her for, these different opportunities as well. So when you can find that value proposition to speak your truth and then follow through, it starts creating this beautiful alignment.
But I think it's also kind of, she had the courage to actually say, I want to see what am I missing here? And then taking the steps forward to have that transformation, to go through that process to get to it. And that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful story. And that comes to mind that, a lot of us are capable to do a lot more if we would allow ourselves, if we had the courage to look into what is our value, what do we bring to the table that can actually help someone else. And that's where, we are coming from a serving place. We want to do
Mhm.
this because we want to help people. And so finding what we are about, what we can bring to the table that's valuable is so important. So that's a wonderful story. I hope other women are going to join that transformation, moving
Yeah.
forward. Um, I want to get into owning your voice. This is a pattern that comes up in visibility, and sometimes visibility actually grows faster than your confidence. So someone starts to show up more, they're being promoted to a managerial role, to a leadership role, they're speaking more, they're putting themselves out there, but they do not really feel ready internally. So then they create a lot of the questioning, right? And the questioning and this overthinking creates a lot of discomfort. So you can still be visible, but not be so solid in your voice.
Mhm.
Because, personally, I think that confidence doesn't come from visibility alone, but from the self trust that we mentioned earlier. So it comes from your understanding of your perspective, your values, or trusting that you're saying has weight. So
Mhm.
there is where the internal work becomes just as important as your let's say external expression. So how do you help people move from just sharing to actually owning their voice?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I believe like everything starts with awareness, right? A lot of the times we're in this digital age where we are losing a lot of our like attention,
Mhm.
and we're just kind of going on autopilot, and we're just kind of doing things, and we're just kind of going through the motions. And that's where awareness becomes so key, because we are, we can think that we're going from a place of intention, but if we don't understand what those stories, like the underlying stories that we're actually operating on,
Mhm.
it's going to continuously keep us small, right? And as you'd mentioned, like that's where the inner work starts. And it always starts with us and uncovering those self limiting beliefs. And there's also a great book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks about how we create these agreements, usually from years ago, that are not truths, but we had maybe a not a great experience, and we called it our truth, right? I had that about writing as well. Like when I was younger, I I started writing this like fantasy novel, and I had someone look at it, wrote like 13 pages, and I was so excited about it, and they like laughed at it, and didn't even say anything bad about it. All they did was just laugh about it. And I like internalized that I couldn't write. And like that followed me for years. And I took writing classes and I took all these things, but it took me years to realize that it was an agreement that I had made that was not true based on one experience. So that's why we have to dig deeper to understand what are those agreements that we've made that are holding us back, that are stifling our voice, that essentially we're hiding in plain sight, where we know we have value, but we
Mhm.
can't quite, get ourselves there to really stand in our own voice. And
Mhm.
start pulling these beliefs out, um, that's when we can really become incredibly powerful and very much owning and sharing our voice. So, and people on this call might be like, "That's great, but like, how do I do this?" So,
Yes.
um, one of the things, an exercise I love to take people through is, how about we take like a couple minutes and kind of go
Mhm.
through it, if
Sure.
everyone wants
Let's
to
do it.
experience that.
Do it. You
I
know
will.
what? And that actually reminded me that, it's so important, even as we step into our adult life, to realize that our words carry so much weight. Like we tell something to someone that might be like a joke to us,
Yeah.
and they might take it as to heart and just work years to actually get over it, or kind of come to terms that was just a joke. It was not, don't take it personally. So thank you for sharing that story. But yes, I would love to do the exercise with you, and just go ahead and lead us through it, please.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so, and I will put a disclaimer for those that are on the LinkedIn Live. If you're driving or you need your eyes open, then you can listen to the recording.
Mm-hmm.
So safety first. But for those of you that can, and safe to close your eyes, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to start taking some deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And I first just want to do a simple grounding exercise. And I love starting out this way because even if you're in a very, let's say, high pressure situation, this is a very quick exercise that you can do just to come back into your body and feel very grounded. So it can help you to bring clarity and focus. So I want you to feel the floor beneath your feet. And I want you to visualize roots coming out of your feet, going into the ground. I want you to use all of your senses as you start to smell the earth, as you go deeper and deeper into the center of the earth. I want you to be able to feel the crystals as you go deeper until you hit all the abundance of energy that you will ever need. And I want you to visualize your roots going into this abundant energy. And as you breathe in, I want you to see this light coming up, see it coming up through your roots, going up through the rocks, the crystals, and I want you to see this light entering into your feet, and you might feel a tingling sensation as you see this warm light coming up through your shins, see it coming up through your legs, your heart, and I want you to see it going through your head and seeing it turn into tree branches as it goes up into the sky. As it connects with the sky, I want you to exhale and see that light coming back down through the tree branches, back down through your whole body. And I want you just to kind of create a rhythm with your breath and just seeing this light circulating, clearing out any blockages, and just rooting you, grounding you, coming back into your body. And when you're ready, I want you to visualize yourself in your workplace. And I want you just to see yourself there. You might actually be there physically as well, but I want you to see yourself in, say, a common area. Say it's the coffee break room, maybe it's a big boardroom, everyone's around you. And just see the people talking around you, and you're just kind of sitting in the middle and you're observing everything at this point. And I want you just to notice that there is this kind of translucent box around you. And I want you to see it as it separates you from everyone else at work. And I just want you to notice it. Notice maybe if it has a color, if it's just clear and you can kind of see like the different edges around it. And I want you to ask yourself this question. What self-limiting belief do I need to let go of, that I need to break through from to be my full authentic self at work? And I would just want you to listen and just to notice. You might see something in the visualization, you might hear something, you might feel something within you. But essentially, what is holding you back right now for you to be your most authentic self at work? And when it comes through, I want you to see just breaking and smashing through this glass translucent box that you're in, and just feel the air change as you break through it. And just notice what's different. And just be playful with your mind of what you see next.
I think we might have lost you, Megan.
I seem to have lost Wi-Fi there.
It was just for a second, and I felt like we were close towards the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see you now, so I believe you're back online.
But yeah, I don't know if this went out already, but just write down whatever you saw, whatever insights that you have, and just write down any insights that came to you. And I was about to say, until I realized, because my eyes were closed as well, anyone who's feeling brave to share what they saw in the chat.
We're gonna give people some room if they want to do that. But that was a beautiful exercise. So this is what you will call breaking out of the box visualization, right? And this is so powerful because you can actually feel that emergence from your old self, old beliefs into this new you, basically, who doesn't carry that weight with you. And one of those limiting beliefs might be something like, nobody cares what I say, right? That's a common one. Nobody cares. But, what do you mean? Everybody cares because everybody's voice is important. We're all valuable as human beings. And if you do have a position, that means you deserve to get there. It was not just landed to you or just handed, as a gift. So I think that's very important to kind of realize. So if something comes in terms of comments, I will definitely read those out to you. But if you don't mind, I want to get over to this idea that it's just not about what we say. And I feel like this is one of the most important shifts when it comes to leadership communication, because we have seen this probably so many times where we have two people saying exactly the same things, use exactly the same words, even present the same exact idea, and the impacts actually feel completely different. And that difference, I feel like, is not just the message, but the state that is behind the message, right? Because people don't just listen to what you say, they pick up how grounded you are, how certain you are, how aligned you are with your words. And when we talked earlier about our alignment, that what we say is actually aligned with our value and with what we want to share, how we want to serve the world. And if there is alignment internally, the message lands differently, right? And when there's doubt and when there's overthinking, people can feel that too, right? So it's really not about refining the message, but about strengthening this presence behind it. So how do you see this show up in communication and messaging, Megan?
Yeah, I have found, when we pair that, when we're talking about like the value proposition, we start gaining more confidence, inner voice in our conviction. And when we have that, impact, the purpose that we have behind it too, it also comes through our voice, right?
Mm-hmm. Can you hear us? Hello. This is a fun part about being alive because you never know what's happening. Your internet might go down, power line might fall somewhere. So you get interrupted. And hopefully we're going to jump right back in. Megan, can you hear me? I think your Wi-Fi went out. So let's give Megan a second here, and I can talk to you about alignment if you would like. I was mentioning last time when I was live that I do not see alignment like a separate thing from you. You, as a human being, are whole and complete. And being in alignment simply means you recognize how you can express your internal values, your internal messaging into the external communication. So I think that it's very important to make that distinction. Hey, Megan, are you back?
I think so. I switched it to my phone.
Okay, let's see.
Here.
Okay, I can hear you okay.
Okay. I can hear you as well.
Okay, perfect. So if you want to go back to what you were saying, let me see if the live. Okay, so that's still going. So if you want to maybe go back to your chain of thoughts, if you would like.
Sure. So when I was saying that when we have, when we know what our purpose is and we have like that passion behind the words that we're talking about, it becomes incredibly powerful as well.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of, this one meeting stood out to me. I came back from when I was still in the corporate world. I was leading our Women and Allies employee resource group. And I had the opportunity to go to this conference where they had all the ERG leaders fly in. And we were considered one of the top performers. So we got to showcase what we were doing. They had this amazing event. It was so powerful, and it made you feel that you were making a really big impact, and like the leaders
Mm-hmm.
involved, and it was so amazing. And when we came back, our C-suite wanted us to do a presentation, so like a week away of doing all this, and then they're like 30 minutes. Oh, we want you to present with.
Mm-hmm. Because why not?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, sure, week is fine. And I still remember that meeting because when it was my turn to speak, all I had was one word written down, and the word was wow. And I literally was my opening to essentially my presentation for it. Like, wow, like it is the one word that just sums up
Mm-hmm.
experience was. And I was just speaking from this place of, passion, of all these different things where you could see everyone just was leaning in because they wanted to hear about the experience, because I was just painting this picture of like all the amazing things, the meaning, the impact, all those different elements were coming through. And for the rest of the day, I had all these executives coming over like, wow, that was a really great speech they gave. And it wasn't when you're talking about the words, right? Like I had nothing written down, right?
Yep.
And it's not that you shouldn't be prepared in your meetings, but when you can put in that passion, when you can put that emotion behind what you want to accomplish and you can align that with the impact, it becomes incredibly powerful. And that's where our authority comes in as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can marry those two together, and then we can take, the action behind it, that the words that you're saying aren't just words as well. Because a lot of the time we can also see people who are really good at what I'd like to call jazz hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like they tap dance and they like, look at this, look over here.
Yeah.
never follow through, and that will erode your trust, even if you're really good at speaking, if you can't be able to back up what you're saying that you're going to do.
Mhm. But this reminds me of something that I loved very much when we first talked about this conversation, and that is the energetic business card. So
Yeah.
please talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned exactly the perfect scenario where that can come in so valuable, right? When you don't have a lot of words, but you know exactly how you feel and you just want to, transmit that as clearly as possible.
Yeah. So, people who know me know that I work with energy. And, whether people are like, I don't really believe in it. I'm like, if you're at a networking event and there's one person that walks in the room and all of a sudden, like, everyone just turns, like, they're very magnetic. And it's like, everyone's like, who is that? Who's that person? And they just come in, they have confidence. It's because all these different aspects are actually aligned. That's kind of like their energetic business card, right? And this is part of the reason why I'm not a huge fan of when people say like fake it till you make it, because you can tell when someone's not being authentic because their energy is off, right? When someone's trying to be confident but they don't really feel confident, so like their whole demeanor is not in alignment with that.
Hmm.
The way that, and the funny thing is, this is what I talk about, is that we upgrade, our laptop software, we update our phones, but we don't upgrade our energy.
We don't, but we should, and we are learning to, right? We're learning.
But when we start to release those self-limiting beliefs, that's ways that we are starting to shed, right? We are
Mhm.
clearing out those old self-limiting beliefs, and we're cleaning them out of our energy as well. So when we start kind of pulling apart those old agreements, right, and we start replacing them with new ones, it starts to change the energy around you as well.
Hmm. Exactly. And that brings me to my next point, which is this identity shift, because you're literally becoming someone else, right? So you, from this idea of being seen, you move from people hoping, or yourself hoping, that people will listen to what you say, to actually understanding that your voice carries weight. And it's not about really doing more or saying things better. It's about this identity shift that you just talked about, right? It's about how you see yourself when you speak, and how you show up, and how you lead. And because authority is built over time, through consistent action, through clarity and disalignment, it really starts with this internal shift, right? Who am I when I speak? What do I stand for? And that's really something, being very clear with yourself. And by the way, who I am when I speak, it shouldn't be any different than who you are every single day, because it's only one of you, and you should be that, yourself every time. So, but I think that's where authority really starts to form, right? So, how does this shift look like for you, Megan, from a positioning and thought leadership perspective?
Well, the shift always comes from internal, and it also comes from like the perspectives that we're holding as well. Of I think also a lot of the times we think smaller than what we're capable of as well. So sometimes as well, just opening our mind to, what is actually possible. Again, it's like breaking out of that glass box that we're putting ourselves in, of like the impact that we can truly make. And I can do, I know we had talked about that. I could do one more visualization. This
Yeah.
one, I love this one just because it makes you just feel lighter. And like when we're talking about like the energetic business card, this one kind of helps with your energy. And I promise I'll do it really quickly.
You have good connection now, so I think you're okay.
I'm on my so
Okay, you go ahead whenever you're ready.
sure. All right, so I want you just to close your eyes. I want you to take some deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And I want you As you see yourself in your chair with your feet flat on the ground, I want you just to notice when we talk about, our authentic self, when we talk about our authority, what we're stepping into, I want you to visualize almost like these chains that might be holding you down. And you don't have to label them and what they might be at this point, but just notice where you see these chains. And they just might have like a chain link that's just pulling you down, but just notice where they are. Just observing, might be in your arm, might be in your heart, or even in your legs. And I want you just to slowly notice that each one has like a hook on them, that you can actually easily start unhooking these chains that are kind of like holding you down, weighting you down, things that you've been carrying that you don't need to carry anymore. And I just want you to start visualizing you unhooking those chains. And just notice how you feel as you're just unchaining all these cords, all these links that just no longer serve you anymore. And I just want you to notice if you have one that is actually attached to your throat, to your voice. And if you do have one here, I just want you to actually visualize a light that's starting in your heart. And I want you just to see this light in your heart just starting to expand. And as your heart starts to expand, I want you to see that light coming up and connecting with your throat. And this could be just gratitude for yourself, gratitude for you showing up today, for doing the work, for being here, for just being you. And I want you to unhook the one in your throat if it's there. And I just want you to see that light that starts to shine through in your throat, in your heart. And I want you just to start enveloping this light. And it just starts expanding all around you. And you might just feel the lightness around you as you feel that the heaviness is just slipping away, and acknowledging that you no longer need to carry it. You no longer need to carry these weights of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy enough, of knowing that you have so much value to give, that through your voice, through your heart, through the purpose, the meaning, and the impact that you lead in your life is worthy of your voice. And it's worthy to share it with the world. And when you're ready, I want you to open your eyes. So how do you feel now?
That was so beautiful. So we're stepping into our own, like into this new identity, which is not carrying these heavy weights with us. And really, that, if you can imagine it physically, that really can be so hard sometimes to carry, right? And this reminded me, so beautiful. It reminded me there was a an art figure in Chicago a few years ago, where they show this person literally chained to the ground. And then a few blocks down the road, it was showing the same figure kind of with their hands up in the sky, kind of taking life fully in, and all those chains on the floor. And you're literally reminding me of that. And it's just so beautiful because we can really do that. We have to become conscious that we can. And as you said, we are worthy. We are worthy to share with the world what we know. So thank you. I appreciate that. That was really wonderful. If someone has any comments about it or any questions, we will be gladly taking them even after the live. You can always comment on this. We would love to hear from you. If we were to move forward, Meghan, I want to bring something very practical, even though we have done 2 exercises that you share with us. And, we have seen that a lot of women have a lot of things valuable to say. And we feel that's not really the issue. The issue is that there's a lot of hesitation around it. There's a lot of uncertainty. How will this be perceived? Is this clear enough? So sometimes we're overcomplicating things. So I would love to see what is one simple shift that we can aim towards and be like, okay, I'm doing this. This is my first step. And the way I see it from my side will be to kind of build that self-trust and not waiting to be fully ready, but kind of learning to trust your voice, even while you're still growing into it, right? You're still developing that voice. So what do you think? What do you think is one shift that can help someone step forward more confidently?
I think, well, I would suggest, really digging deep in that value proposition and using that as as guiding steps for like the actions, and just set an intention for this week. And it might be, what I'm going to share, my information are valuable in a meeting, and you might set the intention that I'm going to be the first one to speak with
Mhm.
fiction, and maybe that's your one step.
Mhm.
But taking, that knowledge and, that value proposition that you have, with the impact you want to make, and then just creating those small shifts along the way and just committing,
Mhm.
right? And you can even do when you're like, if you don't want to do it, I can't remember who talks about it, but like the countdown, right?
Mhm.
4, 3, 2, 1, and you just do it.
Go. Yes, exactly. Exactly. You're your own cheerleader. But I love that you put a timeline on it. Like start with this week. Don't think about the whole year, you know. Start with today, start with this week. What can I do right now? And I think that's great because sometimes we think about, oh, what am I going to do up, in 5 years? I'm like, well, how about today? How about tomorrow? Right? Just the immediate future, something that we can control. We have received one question about this from Adrian. How do you help build the presence or that presence? And I think she's referring to presence in general, which we have covered some bits and pieces throughout this talk. Um, but what I'm thinking about when I read this question is a couple of things. Number one, self-awareness, right? How do I move into being that observer of myself? Um, Especially when we're overthinking, on when we're adjusting, when we're trying to say the right things in the right way. The second one is clarity, which we talked a little bit about that, right? Getting clear with yourself. What do you actually want to talk about? What do you believe? What do you stand for? And lastly, it's the self-trust, which is willing to stand in that perspective that you believe in, even when it's not perfect. So presence is not something that you add on top of your skills, right? I think it's really something that you are. It's who you are. So what do you think about this, Meghan? How would you approach it?
No, I think that's very clear. It's because presence is, you know, thinking of it as like, because I did marketing for many years. It's like
Mhm.
your brand, it's who you are, right? And when people think of like, how do I build presence? Like you have presence.
You are the presence.
Seeing you as like seeing you every day. It's not something in the future. Like it's
Mhm.
embodying in this moment. So becoming very clear about, what's that message that you want to be as part of your presence? And a really good way of doing that is first understanding what are your values, right?
Mhm.
That is a guiding post as well, not only for your decision making, but how you show up, because that also builds trust when you're congruent with those values as well.
Exactly. So, Megan, thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and we have gotten the two bonuses from you with the exercises that you put on the table, and I really appreciate that. And maybe we should break them down into small videos so people can actually get back to them. Um, but this is it for us today. This was a wonderful, grounded conversation with Megan, and we are hoping that you have enjoyed it. If you have any questions as you watch it later on, please do uh, add your comments, or you can DM Megan or myself and let us know if something comes up, if something else that you want to talk about, or if something is interesting, or even if you disagree with us. We're going to welcome that as well. Megan, any last words for us?
Uh, no, I would just say keep shining your light and know that your voice is worth being heard.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Megan, and thank you, everybody. We'll be in touch. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.